Welcome back. In this lecture, we are going to see how do we create tables and establish the primary key and foreign key relationships. Before creating tables, you need to understand we have to create the database because the table resides under the database. So multiple tables can be created under the database and then we can establish the relationship. Let's get it started. Let's click on the new query window. It is connecting to the database engine again. First, let's create the database. We create the database using the create database command that we learned in the previous lecture. We give the database name as sales orders, or we give the database name as order details. That makes more sense. Let's create the database first. Go back to the Object Explorer, refresh it. Check the database being created or not. We got the database created order details. Now, let's create the tables. In the previous lecture, we were seeing that we are going to create two tables. One table is sales order and another table is product. Let's create the tables now. So I go to the Object Explorer. I click on the order details database. I click on the order details database. I go to the tables, right click, new table. First, I'm going to create the ID column, which is in database. First, I'm going to create the ID column, which has the data type integer. I don't want to allow nulls. It's a primary key column. Then I'm going to create the column called name, which is a n varchar of 50. I don't want to allow nulls for that. Then we are going to create the quantity, which is an integer column, and I don't want to allow nulls for it. And then we are going to create a column called product ID, which is the foreign key. We're going to make this column as a foreign key, and this is also an integer, and it allows null. I make the ID column as a primary key, go to the ID column, click on it, right click on it, set as primary key. So that's how you can set the primary key for a column. Then go to the tab where you created this and click on Save Table 1. The name we are going to give is Sales Order. Click OK. Now the table would have created. Go back and refresh it. Now we see the table Sales Order being created. Let's create the another table product in the using SQL query. Let's create another table called products using SQL query. The syntax is create. Rather than database, we are going to say table. Give the table name as product. I hope that we are giving the correct name. So it is like product. Thus we are going to create the table name as product. And then we are going to have two columns inside it. So let's create the two columns. First is the ID column. It is an integer, it is a not null, and it is a primary key. The second column, it is nothing but the product name. It is a string. When it says string, it is n varchar of 50, and then it is a not null column, and there is no relationship for it. So select on this. When you select on this, make sure that what is the database you are creating. So right now the database is master. So let's use the new database what we created. So use order details and then go. So making sure that we are modifying the database name. So when I say use order details, this table will be created under the order data. This table will be created under the order details database. Click on execute it. Now the table got created. You see that now the database got changed from master to the order details when you use the command use order details. Let's go back and refresh the tables now. Now this product table is also being created. So what we have created until now is we have created two tables and established the primary key relationship. Now let's enter some records inside these tables and then we establish the foreign key relationship. Go back to the product table, what we created, right click on it, edit top 200 rows, Click on that option. Let's see, product ID 1 is kind of soap. Product ID 2, we want to give product ID 2, it could be belt. And the product ID 3, it could be glasses. Okay, so we create 3 products and then right click on it, close on it. Now we want to see whether the records are present. The entries that we have inserted, it's actually inserted into the table product. So let's go and select the table, select. So this is the first time we are using the select query. The syntax is to select from a table. The syntax to select from a table is select star. And I say star, I'm selecting all the columns from the table product. You are already using the order details database. Ensure that you are into order details database before selecting this table. Now you see that there are 3 rows being added, soap, belt and glasses. Now let's put some entry into sales order table. Right click. Right click, edit top 200 rows. Now in that we are going to sales order ID. The ID is 1, name is Arun, quantity is 10 and the product ID is 1. So I will create one more row. Again it's Anand. It is product ID is 2. So quantity is 2 and the product ID is 3. And I'll create one more row. It's Nanda. Quantity is 4. Product ID is 2. Now go back and click on close. Let's see whether the new entries, whatever we created, is inserted into the table sales order. Select star from sales order. So click on this. Select and see whether the new rows got inserted. So now we have 2 tables which have rows inserted into it. Now let's establish the foreign key relationship. As we discussed before in the previous lecture, foreign key ensures the data integrity between the 2 tables. So let's see an example. Let's say we're going to insert another value. Let's see if we are able to insert a value inside the sales order table where the product ID is not present in the product table. Right click, edit. So inserting a new row again. This time Satya, he got around quantity 2 for product ID 4. We go back and close it. Let's go and select this table again. You see that the product ID 4 is not present in the product table. We see here 1, 2, 3 only is present. The ID 4 is not present. So actually we are inserting a row where there is a data integrity having a problem. What I mean to say here is the product ID 4 is not inside the present the product name. We really don't know what Satya actually bought the product. Let's enforce the foreign key constraint. Go to the sales order table, go to the design, go to the product ID which you are going to make the foreign key constraint. Right click on it, go to relationships, click on add and then you go to the tables. So you go click on the columns. You click on the primary key table. The primary key table for us is the product table and the ID column is the primary key for us. And the foreign key table is the sales order table and the ID column for that. Click on OK. If you click on add and save it, you are able to create a relationship using the Object Explorer graphical window. Now we want to create the foreign key relationship using a SQL query. So let me close on it, but this is a way to create it using Object Explorer graphical window, but I want to try it using a SQL query. Let me close on it, go to the SQL query, and then I go back and pick up the query. I just copy this query. Here, what we are trying to do here is in the SQL queries, we are going to alter the table sales order, adding a constraint, giving the constraint a name. So the constraint name is table name. Both the table names I have included. So rather than product ID, it should be product. Both the table names and the foreign key. So by looking at the constraint name, people can understand. So these are the tables I've integrated for the foreign key. I given the foreign key as a product ID for this table, the references to the product table of ID. So this will create me a foreign key constraint for the sales order table product ID. Let me run this query. Now the query got executed successfully. I'm going back to the table, refreshing it. You go back to the columns. You could see here right now, product ID has been established as a foreign key. And let's test it out by inserting some records which doesn't have a record in the product table. Let's try it out. Go to the edit top 200 rows. So I go back, I'm having 5 and I'm inserting something called Arun again. We have a quantity of 4 and he is establishing 6. The 6 is not present in the product table for the product ID. Let's see what happens. Now you could see that you will not be able to insert a row and the insert statement conflicted with the foreign key constraint. So the foreign key constraint has enabled the data integrity and making sure the relationship is maintained. So that's how you can create a foreign key and ensure the data integrity.